I'm Ryan Alexander, back here with you for another Ryan Rants, the solo pod. It's been a big week. Saturday was at the game against the Mets. Kutch did not get hit number 2,000 on Saturday. Of course, he gets it basically the first minute of the game on Sunday. Gets 2,000. So, congrats to Kutch. I mean, what else can you say about Kutch? He's basically Pittsburgh. Came back to be with the Pirates, contacted the Pirates and Nutting to say he wanted to come back. Comes back, gets 2,000, and there's other milestones coming. And we talked about Kutch earlier this year on this Ryan Rants, and I know the guys have talked about him as well to great length. But Kutch has pretty much been everything and more that you thought coming back in here. Never thought he'd even play as many games as he has, and he's been doing great. Been playing those games and doing really well and walking everywhere. I mean, the guy's on base percentage is absurd right now. It's like back at 2014 Kutch. So it's great to see 2,000. I'm not really maybe not with Jim for the what he said, a lifetime contract or the 1-year contract with unlimited player options. I don't know if I can get there yet. Maybe we can open up like a coaching role for Kutch in a couple of years. But yeah, he's still doing it. And yeah, just keep letting him do his thing at this point. But yeah, it was great to see 2,000. Wish I would have been in attendance for it on Saturday, but can't. Those things always don't work out. So let's get into some ranting here. Yeah, so the Pirates decide to send Contreras to the pen after I ranted on that 2 weeks ago. Velasquez goes down, kind of saved him for a second in the rotation, and then what did he do? Give up 6 runs in an inning against the A's, which was brutal. So he goes to the bullpen, see if he can figure some things out. And in the meantime, the Pirates need a starter, so they're going to call up Quinn Priester, right? Nope, they call up. And I'm not even going to talk about Osvaldo Bido because the dude's 27 and he's never really been good in any level of the minor league. So there's really no sense in talking about him because obviously we know Priester is just the better pitcher, the better. He just has better stuff. He has pretty much the same numbers right now at AAA as Bido does. Has a better FIP, a little better walk rate, basically the same strikeout rate, 9.1, but when you can't compare it. Quinn Priester is 22 years old. When Bido was 22 years old, he was in low A West Virginia single A, low A single A, and just he hasn't really been good at every level. So I'm not going to talk about him. I'm going to talk about the fact that Quinn Priester should be up here, and it's especially now because it's probably only going to be for a handful of starts, maybe 1 to 2, and that's it. So Quinn Priester is in his fourth season in the minors. I say season because he lost all of 2020 due to COVID, which a lot of minor leaguers did. So you already feel like he's a little, behind the 8 ball in that aspect. But his 4th season in the minors, he's holding his own at AAA. Not like he's pitching poorly. He's not dominating by any stretch of the imagination, but 6-3, 4.63 ERA. 9.1 strikeouts per 9, which I mentioned, has only given up 3 home runs in 56 innings, and he's just holding his own. And it's just, people are throwing it out. He's not ready. You can't call him up yet. He could ruin his confidence. We could ruin his development. His confidence could be shot after one bad start. Which, why is there always a guarantee that they're going to come up and it's going to be this awful start? Kind of like Contreras had the other day against the A's. But Contreras has been, up with the Pirates for, almost basically 2 years now. And he held it more than held his own last year. So he's obviously working through it, which most major league pitchers, like all of them, struggle at some point. They go through a stretch where they struggle and they either figure it out or they don't. And then they bust out, they flame out, and they're out of the majors. So, like, that's going to happen. Now, do I believe that if you bring Quinn Priester up for a start or two and he struggles or has an awful start, like, is that going to end him? Is his confidence completely shot? His development's no good anymore. You can't send him back to the minors, and he's just not going to be any good, and he's going to be out of the majors. I don't believe that. I don't believe that this 1-2 start thing is going to just hinder his develop, at all. If anything, I think it's going to help his development. If he comes up and struggles, that's something he's eventually going to have to deal with, because, like I said, all major league pitchers struggle at some point. Max Scherzer struggled at some point. He got sent down back to the minors for goodness sake. He went back down to AAA, came up, and then just turned things on and figured it out and became that starter. And look, that's what happens. So you're either going to figure it out. Is he really going to figure things out in AAA where you want to see him dominating? He dominated pretty much AA last year. AA Altoona, 2.87 ERA and 15 starts. Had a strikeouts, 9 strikeouts per 9. Walk rate was lower than it is now. Didn't give up many home runs. Like, he already kind of had that, I don't want to say breakout year, but he's got the pedigree, former first round pick. He's there. Like, most major league teams would have already called him up at this point and seen, what he does in the majors. And if he struggles, you send him back. But at this point, what's he really, is he working on lowering his walk rate? He can do that in the majors. It's not like he's blowing guys away down there. So let him work on it in the majors. You can still develop. I know Donardo's a big, always yells this. You can still develop at the major league level. And most players have to. Most prospects have to. Because you're going to see things in the majors that you don't see in AAA. And you need to figure it out. So why not get him up here and see it? I'm not saying he should stay here for the rest of the year. But hey, maybe he comes up, has a couple good starts, and you end up keeping him up here. But we won't know that because they're just not calling him up. And everybody, I just don't, it's this very select few, and I say few people, but there's a contingent of fans especially on Twitter and Facebook, that just feel like, yeah, everything that the Pirates do at this point, like with prospects, is correct. And from what we've seen, it isn't, because the Pirates do have problems developing guys, and they are known. I'm not saying necessarily Ben Cherington is, but going back to Huntington days, even beyond that, they were always sort of known for having guys in the minors longer than they should. And you're seeing more and more around baseball where guys are coming up younger. Ronald Acuna was 20, 21 or whatever when he was up in the majors. You're seeing younger players get called up, and hey, if they struggle, they figure it. They got to figure it out, or they don't. And they flame out, or they go back and try to fix things. But I don't believe having 1 or 2 bad starts is going to derail his entire career. And I don't even necessarily think that he would come up and have that awful of a start. Why is it everybody always goes to as a negative, and it's like, oh, he's not ready. Well, when is he ready? Is there just some magical alert that comes up and it says he's ready? Like, he had a couple good starts, and he's ready now. He lowered that walk rate to 3.5 instead of 4.0. He's ready. Like, when is this magical they're ready designation? I don't believe it really. You can't quantify it. You just got to call guys up when you think that they're showing enough that they can pitch. And at the end of the day, the Pirates are in first place. They're in first place. Look at my Ryan Rants last week. The A's go in, sweep the Brewers. They beat the Rays in the opening game of that series. So apparently now we can't take the Brewers seriously, which I wasn't. But we can't take the Rays seriously now either, or the Braves, because the A's beat them. So, yeah, nailed that podcast last week. But I guess I'm starting to think the A's would be like in second place in this division if they were in this division and played the Cardinals and Brewers and Pirates all the time. But yeah, it's just, yeah, when are these guys magically ready? The Pirates are in first place. They're competing this year. You need a guy that's going to go out there for a couple starts and try to win the game. I'd much rather see Quinn Priester out there than Bido or somebody else at the minor league level. Like, Priester has the pedigree. He has the first round pick. He has the stuff. We know it's there. Like, he's just better than Bido. He's younger. He's doing things at AAA that Bido's doing now at age 27. So trying to compare the two is ridiculous. Like, the pitcher that gives you the best chance to win at the major league level or the minor league level is Quinn Priester. So call him up. Let's see what he has. And don't worry about, oh, his confidence is shot. If he comes up and his confidence is, he gets knocked around and his confidence is so shattered that he's, can't just pick himself up and move on, then you probably weren't a major league pitcher. And we found out now. But obviously they're going to give him more chances than just 1 or 2 starts if they called him up this month. So I just don't see the delay in calling him up. It's just the Pirates do this stuff time and time again, while other teams, winning teams, we would see call him up and get the job done. So just call him up. He's your best pitching prospect at this point, or at least the best one that's the closest to the majors. He's not pitching poorly at AAA. So just why wouldn't you call him up? And then, like, at this point, this goes back to like the Drew Maggi thing. When you see a call up for Maggi where 32, 33-year-old minor leaguer gets called up, which is completely ridiculous. And he was up here for, started a game, pinched hit, had his moment, was on, Good Morning America or whatever the heck he was on, the Today Show. Why? Like, what are the other prospects down there at AAA that are like trying to get to the majors? Like, they have a chance in their career. What's that message send to them? Like, what are they thinking? Like, what's Quinn Priester thinking when he sees Bido go up, a 27-year-old minor leaguer journeyman at this point, and he's not even pitching better than him at this point? So what does Priester think when that happens? So it goes back to the Pirates front office doing things harder than it needs to be. Just call Priester up. He's the better pitcher. You need somebody that's going to try to get you 5-6 innings, get you a win, keep you in the game, and that's Quinn Priester. And let's go. The Super 2 deadline is pretty much passed or going to pass this week or right around here. Like, let's call him up. Let's call Indy up. Let's go. So there's my rant on the Pirates front office. Wanted to get into one more thing today. Not really a rant, but I kind of wanted to do some research. So you see things about some fans' opinions and stuff out there, and it's become a narrative that Bryan Reynolds hits home runs or is like Barry Bonds when the game's out of reach or there's nobody on base. And now that's something we can quantify. So you've seen this narrative, and I even was the one, like, it just seemed like the Pirates, I forget what probably the last home run he had this season, the Pirates were down big and Bryan Reynolds homered, and it's like, boy, I got to start throwing a live bet in on Reynolds when the score gets out of control. So I was even like fell victim to that topic, and it just everybody was it was like when Reynolds is up or nobody's on base, then he's great, and it's not a clutch situation, he's good. So I thought, let me do some research on Bryan Reynolds because it is quantifiable. We can look this stuff up. We track home runs. We track when they happen. They track everything about baseball. So I did some research. Bryan Reynolds in his career, 5 seasons, including this one, has hit 81 total home runs in his career. And I went through, I looked up every single time he homered, basically what the score was, and I lumped them into 3 categories. So the first one was when the game was tied. The second one was when the game was within 1 to 3 runs, either way. Pirates down 1 to 3 runs or ahead 1 to 3 runs, because considering that as a close game still. And then I did home runs when the score was 4 runs or more. So when the Pirates were down 6 runs or ahead 7 or more, that's when I did those. So going through his 81 home runs, he's hit 50 home runs out of his 81 when the score was between 1 to 3 runs. He's hit 16 of those home runs, of the 81 home runs, when the game was tied. And he's had 15 of those home runs when the game was out of reach or 4 runs or more. So percentage-wise, 61.7% of his home runs were with 1 to 3 runs. 19.8, so basically 20%, was when the game was tied. And then 18.5 when the game was at 4 runs or more out of reach. So just lumping in tied games and when the game was a close game, that's his home runs, 81.5% of the home runs that he's hit have come in those close games or tied games. So right there, like now, most batters are going to be coming up. Like you just have more opportunities in those games where the game's tied and the score's close, just because that's, baseball's usually within a couple runs and things don't get, there's not too many blowouts, very often. So obviously the majority of his at-bats coming up are going to be when those kind of situations arise. But I figured 81.5% is I think a pretty high total for your total home runs to be in those situations. So I didn't really see anything there towards the narrative that Bryan Reynolds only hits home runs when the game's out of reach and things like that. So and he's had 2 of those this year. His other 5 home runs, he's had 7 this year. 5 of the home runs were with close games, and just 2 of them were four or more runs. So there's that. So then I also wanted to look at not just what the score was in the game when Bryan Reynolds was hitting, but how is he hit with runners in scoring position, runners on base, nobody on base, and a little more telling, but also doesn't really fit with the narrative. But I'll get into it here. So with bases empty, he has hit 44 of his home runs, which is 54.3% of his home runs, so more than half. Now, he's had more plate appearances against that, 1,200 plate appearances. So I broke this down in home runs per, how many plate appearances per home run. So with bases empty, Reynolds will homer about 1 every 29 plate appearances. With runners just on base, it doesn't necessarily have to be third base, bases loaded. Just if somebody is on base, he's homered 1 home run every 27 plate appearances. So actually just a little bit more frequent than with bases empty. He had 37 home runs with runners on base, or just 1 runner, and then 44 with bases empty. And he's had just slightly more plate appearances with bases empty, 1,200, 1,278 with bases empty, and then just over 1,000 plate appearances with runners on base. Now, so that doesn't fit the narrative, because he's really homering more frequently, just by a little bit, with runners on base. But runners in scoring position, this was interesting. He's had obviously a lot less plate appearances with runners in scoring position, 530. So basically half of the other plate appearances when the bases were empty or runners on base. So when runners are in scoring position, second or third base, he's hit 13 of his 81 home runs during that time, 16.1%. A home run once every 40 plate appearances. So the other 2 were 29 and 27. This one is 40. So he is homering. It does take him a little longer to homer, or he's not homering as frequently with runners in scoring position. So that does speak to the narrative a little bit. But then you look at slugging percentage, just overall slugging percentage, not just home runs, when runners are in scoring position, and he's hitting 471 slugging percentage, which is better actually than he is with bases empty. With bases empty, his slugging percentage is 454. With just runners on base, period, 515. So that's his best. Also makes sense for the numbers of his home runs, because he homers in 27 plate appearances with runners on base. That was his highest slugging percentage. And then with runners in scoring position, it's 471. So he hits better with runners in scoring position overall, just doubles, triples, whatever. But he homers more with bases empty, or more frequently with bases empty. So I thought that was interesting. I don't think there's enough there to really correlate, or I guess, I feel like Reynolds kind of gets a bad rap about that narrative, and, just, oh, look, I think somebody, I forget if it was Steve Steele or somebody, but basically tweeted out the picture of Barry Bonds, and it said, Bryan Reynolds when the bases are empty, and it's a picture of Barry Bonds, and not quite. He has a better slugging percentage with runners on base and with runners in scoring position. Now across, I didn't go through MLB and try to find out what the average of all that is, but overall, hitters do most likely hit better with runners in scoring position and stuff, just because, I don't know, pressure on the pitcher, the pitcher's pitching from the stretch. There's a number of factors there Maybe the batter is trying harder to drive that run in than he would, per to say, in a bases empty situation. So there's a lot there. So I think you are going to see an increased slugging percentage with runners on and runners in scoring pace just across baseball in general. So I think it makes sense that his slugging percentage is higher there. But with the home runs, it just, whether there's a runner on base or not, there's really no difference there. When they get in scoring position, maybe it's a little different. He doesn't seem to have the home runs as frequently there, but his slugging percentage is better than with empty. So yeah, so I think Reynolds gets a little bit of a bad rap, even from me who was buying into that narrative. So I love stuff like this where you can actually look up the numbers, see what's going on, and kind of figure out if that narrative is correct or not. And here, I don't really think it is. One note that I did want to throw out here with Reynolds that I came across during this research was, and this is one of my betting notes. So Reynolds seems to hit home runs in bunches. So when he hits a home run in a game, he has homered in the immediately the next game, or like a game that, like, maybe not the next game, but the game after that. So like every other or the game after, he's hit them in like sort of like bunches. Now he's had 4 multi-hit games in his career, and 13 instances where he had back-to-back home runs in games. So if he homers on Friday night and he comes into Saturday, he's homered 13 different times. And then every other day, he's homered 2 out of 3 games or what have you, 10 times in his career. So I thought that was interesting. You see a lot of people will bet to hit a home run, at any time before the game and stuff like that, where you're getting a lot, it's not -1 or even money. You're getting odds. So it's like, 3-1, or some hitters, I think, Carlos Santana and Kutch will be like plus 560. That's like, 5.6 to 1. So you can put up $10 and win 50 if you hit some of those. So Reynolds hasn't homered here. I think it was like May. It was like towards the end of May was the last time he's homered. So he's in a bit of a drought right now. Only 7 home runs right now in the season, but something to look for when he homers. It may be, depending on if the numbers are right and you're getting 4 or 5-1 or even better than that for him to homer in the next game. That might be a bet I throw some money on. So I thought that was interesting that I found out. Always looking for those betting angles to stick it to the sports books. But yeah, it was interesting. I never really picked that up before, just kind of casually thinking about Reynolds' career and everything, that he would, he hits these in bunches and everything. But it seems the numbers are there that support it, that it's happened pretty frequently just in his 5-year career. So a quick betting note there. And but that's it. That was Bryan Reynolds. So get off his back. He hasn't been that bad, but he kind of needs to get going this year with the home run power and everything. So hopefully he gets going, because Lord knows the Pirates actually opened up Nutting's wallet and extended him and spent some money. So hopefully he can keep going with those home runs, and we'll see if he hits them. But yeah, hitting them more frequently with a runner on base than without. So lay off of them. And that is my ranty pod of the week. Thank you for everyone for checking it out again. And I should be back next week. I'm sure something will tick me off on Twitter, and I'll be back, and we'll do it again. All right, guys. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. And here's Jim's stupid face.
Hey, you all, thank you for watching. I know we try to provide the most entertaining content that we can, and we'd love to spread it to as many people as possible. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could take the 5 seconds to like this video and subscribe to the page, it helps out so much more than you know. Thank you, and let's go Bucks.